In today's video, I'll be sharing some of the most chilling prophecies ever made by history's most famous seers, and especially we'll take a closer look at a few terrifying predictions that are said to be coming true this very year. Number 1. The Prophecies of Nostradamus. In the year 1503, Europe was moving through a turbulent period of transition. The Renaissance had ignited new hope with its explosion of art and science, but at the same time, superstition still cast its shadow across the continent. It was against this backdrop that a boy named Michel de Nostradamus was born into a Jewish family that had converted to Catholicism. From a young age, Michel showed remarkable intelligence. He quickly mastered Latin and Greek and soon developed a passion for astronomy. As he grew older, he studied medicine at the University of Montpellier and went on to become a physician. He became known for his extraordinary efforts in treating the plague, a disease that had ravaged Europe for years. However, tragedy struck when he lost both his wife and 2 young children to the epidemic, leaving him with a profound sense of grief and a restless urge to search for deeper meaning in life. As he entered his 40s, Michel de Nostradamus turned his focus to astrology and prophecy. He spent many nights in a darkened room, carrying out his predictions by gazing into a bowl of water or a mirror, putting himself into a trance-like state. In this state, he claimed to see visions of the future, ranging from natural disasters to violent wars. In 1555, Nostradamus published his famous work, Les Prophéties. This book consisted of 942 4-line poems, known as quatrains. His poems were filled with metaphors and symbols, creating a unique allure, but also stirring up controversy. The ambiguity of his quatrains has remained a source of debate for centuries. Supporters believe that Nostradamus was able to tap into the knowledge of the universe and accurately predict many of humanity's major events. On the other hand, skeptics argue that his prophecies are so vague that they can be interpreted to fit almost any event that happens afterward. Below are some of his most well-known prophecies. A Great War in Europe, 2025. Nostradamus issued a prediction that has caused many people to feel uneasy when he spoke about the year 2025. In his verses, Nostradamus described a great war taking place in Europe that would lead to a severe decline in population. He wrote of bloody battles and the land trembling, painting a picture of a continent plunged into chaos and suffering. Today, many cannot help but connect this prophecy to the tense geopolitical situation in Europe, especially the conflict between Russia and Ukraine that began in 2022. That war has claimed tens of thousands of lives, pushed Europe into an energy crisis, and increased tensions between Russia and the NATO countries. Some Nostradamus researchers believe that he foresaw a war that could expand, not just limited to 2 nations, but possibly drawing in many others, with even the risk of escalating into a nuclear conflict. However, the details in Nostradamus's predictions remain very vague. He did not specify which countries would participate in the war, nor did he reveal the exact cause of the catastrophe. This ambiguity has led many skeptics to argue that his prophecies can be interpreted in various ways to fit any conflict that has ever taken place in Europe. For example, smaller skirmishes in the Balkans or economic tensions between EU member states could also be attributed to this prophecy. Nevertheless, in a climate where signs of instability are constantly appearing across Europe, Nostradamus's prophecies continue to provoke considerable anxiety. Geopolitical analysts warn that 2025 could become a period of heightened tension, especially if peace negotiations fail to yield results. Believers in Nostradamus often point out that he once accurately predicted major wars in history, such as World War II. However, scholars note that Europe has always been the center of many conflicts throughout its long history, making any prophecy about war here all too easy to come true. The Great Fire of London in 1666. Among the most famous prophecies of Nostradamus, his prediction about the Great Fire of London in 1666 has always drawn particular attention. In one quatrain, he wrote, "The blood of the just will be demanded in London. The city will burn in 66." This is one of the rare occasions where Nostradamus made a clear reference to a specific point in time within his predictions. The event took place in the early hours of September 2nd, 1666, when a small fire started in a bakery on Pudding Lane. The flames quickly spread, consuming more than 13,000 houses, 87 churches, including St. Paul's Cathedral, and devastating much of London in just 4 days. Tens of thousands of people lost their homes, and the city was left in ruins, although the official death toll was recorded as surprisingly low. This disaster permanently changed the face of London, prompting new building regulations and leading to the creation of a modern fire brigade. What makes Nostradamus' prophecy so remarkable is his mention of the year 66, an extremely specific detail rarely found in his prophetic poems. Believers in Nostradamus see this as clear evidence of his ability to foresee the future. However, critics present a different view. They argue that London in that era was always vulnerable to massive fires due to very poor infrastructure. In their opinion, anyone predicting a major fire in a city like London in the 17th century had a high chance of being right simply because the risk was so obvious. Regardless of the arguments, the coincidence between the prophecy and the historical event still astonishes many people. Nostradamus wrote these lines more than a century before the fire actually happened, and the detail of the year 66 remains a major question mark about his mysterious abilities. Some believe Nostradamus may have used astrology or intuition to predict the future, while historians emphasize that this was likely nothing more than a random twist of history. The Rise of Hitler, a haunting prophecy from the 16th century. Among the most controversial prophecies of Nostradamus, his prediction about the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Second World War remains one of the most frequently discussed topics. In one quatrain, Nostradamus describes an evil figure coming from the land of Germany, someone who would make rivers of blood flow across Europe. For many, this image seems to reflect Hitler with striking clarity. In reality, World War II was one of humanity's greatest tragedies. From 1939 to 1945, the war claimed over 70 million lives worldwide. Europe was engulfed in brutal battles, relentless bombings, and concentration camps that left wounds never to be healed. People are even more astonished to find that Nostradamus used the word Heister in his prophecy, a detail that has made this quatrain one of his most famous predictions. In fact, this quatrain was written by Nostradamus more than 350 years before Hitler appeared on the world stage. This only adds to the curiosity and controversy surrounding its accuracy. The imagery of rivers of blood is often linked to the most brutal battles of the Second World War, from the bloody siege of Stalingrad in Russia to the historic D-Day landings on the beaches of Normandy. Believers in Nostradamus argue that he foresaw the destruction caused by Nazi Germany, including the Holocaust that led to the ruthless killing of 6 million Jews. However, critics point out that the term hyster could simply refer to another name for the Danube River as used by the ancient Romans rather than being the name of a person. Moreover, European history is full of wars and dictatorial leaders, so the image of an evil figure could just as easily be applied to other historical figures, such as Napoleon. Even so, the strange parallels between Nostradamus' quatrain and the actual events of World War II continue to astonish many. Researchers of Nostradamus believe that he often used metaphors to describe future events, and Heister may have been his way of concealing the true identity of the person he foresaw. Did Nostradamus truly foresee the greatest tragedy of the 20th century, or was it all just a random coincidence? That remains a question that lingers in the minds of many whenever his name is mentioned. The prediction of the September 11th terrorist attack, a haunting prophecy for the modern era. Nostradamus is also believed by many to have predicted the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001. In one quatrain, he wrote about fire from the sky and a new city under attack, images that many immediately associate with the tragedy in New York. On that fateful morning, 2 airplanes piloted by Al-Qaeda terrorists crashed directly into the World Trade Center, killing nearly 3,000 people and bringing down the Twin Towers. For many, the new city mentioned by Nostradamus refers specifically to New York. Meanwhile, fire from the sky evokes the image of airplanes turned into weapons, striking high-rise buildings and leaving behind columns of smoke and fire that will never fade from memory. The similarities between Nostradamus's quatrain and the events of September 11th send chills down the spine of many. Believers in his prophetic abilities argue that he not only foresaw the attack itself, but also sensed its long-lasting impact, from the prolonged war in Afghanistan to the profound changes in global security. However, critics maintain that this prophecy is far too vague. They point out that fire from the sky could be used to describe any disaster, from the bombs of war to natural catastrophes, and new city could refer to any modern urban center, not just New York. Even so, the coincidence with the events of September 11th has made this quatrain a subject of heated discussion for many years afterward. September 11th remains an indelible, painful memory, a turning point that forever changed how people view the world and their own sense of security. Famine and plagues, a warning about humanity's fragile future. Nostradamus once predicted that the year 2024 would witness a great famine brought on by waves of plagues, conjuring up a vision of devastated crops and a global food crisis. In one of his quatrains, he describes scenes of fields laid waste and people crying out in desperation. Looking at the reality of 2024, the world has indeed seen repeated outbreaks of pests and extreme weather that have seriously impacted agricultural production. In Africa, widespread desert locust infestations have destroyed millions of hectares of crops, threatening the food security of millions of people. At the same time, South Asia has faced severe flooding, causing rice production to plummet. Reports from the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization have issued continuous warnings about the emergency, as millions in East Africa and Yemen now face the threat of prolonged famine. Believers in Nostradamus see a striking parallel between his ancient prophecy and the reality of 2024, arguing that he foresaw the effects of climate change and pestilence on humanity. However, scientists emphasize that plagues and food crises are problems humanity has faced many times throughout history, and they are not necessarily tied to any single year or specific event. In their view, this quatrain is vague enough to apply to any period marked by natural disaster and crop failure. Number 2, the Prophecies of Baba Vanga. Baba Vanga is believed to have accurately predicted many major events, such as the Chernobyl disaster in 1986, the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, the collapse of the Soviet Union, and the death of Princess Diana. Most notably, 20 years before the tragedy, she foretold, Kursk will be covered with water and the whole world will weep over it. When Russia's nuclear submarine Kursk sank in 2000, her prophecy sent chills down the spines of many. Some sources claim that between 68 and 85% of her predictions have come true. Below are some of her most famous prophecies about the future. The Great War in Europe, 2025. Among the most haunting prophecies of Baba Vanga, perhaps none has weighed more heavily on the world than her warning of a great war erupting in Europe in 2025. According to her visions, this would be a brutal conflict, one that could lead to a dramatic drop in Europe's population, with cities left in ruins and millions losing their lives. For many who believe in her predictions, this scenario could mark the beginning of the end times that Baba Vanga once spoke of. The anxiety only deepens when Baba Vanga's forecast seems to eerily align with what Nostradamus wrote about a great war occurring in the near future. In today's tense geopolitical climate, with the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, instability in the Middle East, and increasingly fierce competition among global superpowers, Baba Vanga's prophecy has planted a question in many minds. Is the world closer than ever to another world war? To better understand this prediction, it's worth looking back at the circumstances Baba Vanga referred to in her later years. She often spoke of dark forces that could ignite conflict between nations. While she never named a specific cause, her followers believe war could break out over disputes regarding resources such as oil or clean water, or from the rise of extremist movements. Skeptics, however, argue that her prophecy is too vague and could apply to nearly any era of war in European history. So, is 2025 truly destined to be the moment of a new catastrophe, or is this just another symbolic warning like so many predictions before? From a realistic standpoint, a major war in Europe would trigger a military mobilization on a scale unseen since World War II. The NATO alliance currently fields over 3.5 million military personnel, with the majority of forces and advanced technology coming from the United States. Russia, for its part, still possesses the world's largest nuclear arsenal, with nearly 6,000 warheads, according to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. If a true conflict were to break out among these great powers, the consequences would go far beyond casualty numbers, rippling through the global economy and environment. Many military analysts warn that warfare in the 21st century would depend heavily on modern technology, such as artificial intelligence, cyber warfare, and autonomous weapons. Factors that could make the scale of devastation surpass anything the world has ever seen. Behind these numbers and predictions are human stories that make the picture even more chilling. One can imagine cities like Paris, Berlin, or Warsaw reduced to rubble. History has already witnessed more than 40 million Europeans lose their lives during World War II, and a modern conflict involving nuclear weapons would be even more catastrophic. Whether the prophecy proves true or not, Baba Vanga's warning stands as a powerful reminder of the cost of war and the fragility of peace. As of now, the prospect of a major war in Europe in 2025 remains a mystery. Analysts around the world are keeping a close watch on hotspots, from the Russian-Ukrainian border to the Taiwan Strait, searching for any sign of a truly global conflict. Regardless of whether this prediction comes to pass, it has already left many with a deep sense of unease. Encounter with Extraterrestrials, 2025. Among Baba Vanga's most controversial predictions, one that stands out is her prophecy that in 2025, humanity will come face to face with extraterrestrial beings at a major sporting event. Vanga once said that these beings would make their presence known to us, though she never specified whether this encounter would be peaceful or confrontational. In today's context, when reports of unidentified flying objects are being taken more seriously by both the US government and military, her prediction has stirred even more debate. The question remains, is humanity truly ready to meet visitors from the stars? Ever since the infamous Roswell incident in the 1940s, UFO sightings have become an inseparable part of American popular culture. In 2021, the US Department of Defense released a report on 144 cases of unidentified aerial phenomena, with as many as 80 cases confirmed by multiple advanced military sensors. Although there is still no convincing evidence of extraterrestrial life, experts admit that this phenomenon warrants further study. Programs like SETI have used radio telescopes to search for signals from other civilizations, but so far, nothing conclusive has been found. Meanwhile, missions such as NASA's Perseverance rover continue the search for microbial life on Mars, keeping hope alive that we may not be alone in the vast universe. Baba Vanga is not the only one who ever predicted the possibility of contact with beings from beyond Earth. Throughout history, many prophets and scientists, such as Carl Sagan, have raised questions about the existence of advanced civilizations elsewhere. What makes Vanga's prediction unique, however, is its specificity regarding both the timing and the setting, a global sporting event. She claimed to have seen enormous ships with brilliant lights appearing in the sky and beings of strange shapes. Vanga also mentioned a planet called Vamfim, a world she claimed to have contacted through her dreams. To this day, there is no scientific evidence for the existence of such a planet, and many critics argue that it may be nothing more than a product of imagination or the influence of 20th century science fiction culture. From a technical perspective, a genuine encounter with extraterrestrials would require extraordinary advances in space technology and inter-civilizational communication. Scientists argue that if an advanced civilization exists out there, they would need to use vehicles faster than light or quantum technology to traverse millions of light years. The Drake equation once estimated that the Milky Way could harbor thousands of civilizations, yet the odds of them discovering Earth remain extremely slim. But perhaps the greatest fascination of this prediction lies in its human element. Imagine billions of people around the globe watching a World Cup final or the opening ceremony of the Olympics, when suddenly an unidentified object appears in the sky. How would humanity react? Would it be fear, astonishment, or hope? History has seen moments that change the way we view ourselves, like the Tunguska explosion of 1908 or the WOW signal in 1977. Whether Baba Vanga's prophecy proves true or not, it touches on a deep human longing that we are not alone in this universe. The beginning of the end times, 2025. Baba Vanga once predicted that the end times would begin in 2025. According to her, this would mark the start of a series of events that could bring about the collapse of modern civilization, though humanity would not disappear entirely until the year 5079, when an unimaginable cosmic event would occur and bring all life on Earth to an end. The combination of this prophecy with her other warnings about war and natural disasters has fueled widespread anxiety about the near future in the minds of millions. But in truth, what exactly did Vanga mean by the end times? Is it an inevitable vision of destruction, or simply a warning for humanity to change course before it's too late? That question leads us into a mysterious journey where the line between fact and legend becomes more blurred than ever before. For centuries, from the pages of the Bible to the ancient texts of the Mayans, the idea of the world's end has haunted humanity. In modern times, events like the Cold War, with the looming threat of nuclear conflict, or the global climate crisis, have revived those fears in a much more tangible way. Baba Vanga made this prediction in her final years, as she witnessed the collapse of the Soviet Union and political turmoil erupting across the globe. Many say she saw in her dreams images of darkened skies, the earth shaking, and cities reduced to ashes. Still, Vanga never pointed to a specific trigger for this chain of events. From a scientific perspective, the end times could mean many things, from a large-scale nuclear war to an environmental catastrophe, or even a cosmic event such as an asteroid impact. The Global Catastrophic Risk Institute at Oxford University has listed numerous threats that could bring down human civilization, including out-of-control artificial intelligence, global pandemics, and irreversible climate change. For example, a nuclear war between superpowers like the US and Russia could send more than 150 million tons of soot into the atmosphere, causing a nuclear winter and sharply lowering global temperatures for years. Agriculture would be destroyed, leading to widespread famine and the potential deaths of billions. The threat from new viruses, far deadlier than COVID-19, could not be ruled out, with the potential to collapse global healthcare and economic systems in a matter of months. The human stories behind doomsday predictions always give us pause. It's hard to imagine a world where cities like New York, Tokyo, or London descend into chaos due to war or pandemic. History has already seen tragedies like the Black Death in Europe or the atomic bombings of Hiroshima, painful reminders of just how vulnerable humanity can be in the face of disaster. Vanga's prophecy seems to reflect a deep-seated human fear of the end, not just in a physical sense, but morally as well. But is 2025 truly the beginning of the end times? Many scientists say there is no concrete evidence that such a disaster will happen this year. However, real risks still loom. Climate change continues to accelerate, with global temperatures expected to surpass 1.5 degrees Celsius within the next decade, while cyber attacks on critical infrastructure are growing more frequent. Some have even linked Vanga's prophecy to the rare planetary alignment occurring in 2024 to 2025, but scientists insist that the gravitational pull from other planets is far too weak to cause any significant upheaval on Earth. What is unique about Vanga's prophecy is that it also opens up hope for transformation, not just destruction. She once spoke of a new light appearing after the darkness, suggesting that humanity could overcome disaster if people unite and change their ways. This echoes modern philosophies of sustainable development, global cooperation, and collective efforts to build a safer world. The prophecy of doomsday in 2025 remains an unsolved mystery. Only time will tell if it is a true warning meant to awaken us, or just another legendary tale in the history of mankind. In the meantime, scientists, policymakers, and ordinary people around the world are all working to reduce global risks, from cutting emissions to developing asteroid defense systems. Do you believe that 2025 will be the beginning of the end, or is it simply a haunting dream of Baba Vanga? The melting of the polar ice caps, 2045. Baba Vanga once predicted that by the year 2045, the ice at both the North and South Poles would have melted completely, sending global sea levels soaring and submerging many of the world's great cities. Once bustling metropolises like New York, London, Shanghai, or Miami could become modern-day Atlantises, gradually vanishing beneath the rising tide. What makes this prophecy especially unsettling is that it doesn't just exist in the realm of mystical prediction. It aligns closely with the urgent warnings scientists are now sounding about climate change. Without decisive action, this century could see sea levels rise by dozens of meters. To understand the gravity of this, we have to look at the scientific reality unfolding before our eyes. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the average global temperature has already risen by about 1.1 degrees Celsius since the pre-industrial era, primarily due to the burning of fossil fuels. As a result, massive ice sheets in Greenland and Antarctica are melting at unprecedented rates, and the glaciers of the Arctic are steadily disappearing. From 1993 to 2023, average global sea level rose by 3.7 millimeters per year, and that figure continues to climb. If all of Greenland's ice were to melt, the sea would rise by about 7 meters. If Antarctica melted entirely, the increase could reach up to 58 meters, enough to erase coastal cities home to more than 1 billion people worldwide. Baba Vanga was not the only voice warning about this danger. Throughout the 20th century, scientists like Rachel Carson, author of Silent Spring, emphasized the perilous impact of human activity on the natural world. Yet what gives Vanga's prediction its chilling power is the specificity of her timeline. In her dreams, she described visions of enormous waves swallowing land, cities disappearing beneath the ocean, and millions of people fleeing in desperation. Some believe that Vanga foresaw not only the consequences of climate change, but also other disasters such as superstorms or tsunamis, events that could make the situation even more dire. From a technical perspective, the melting of the ice caps is not just a simple physical process, but a complex chain reaction. As the ice disappears, Earth's surface loses its ability to reflect sunlight, causing the oceans to absorb more heat and accelerating the warming process. Particularly concerning is the potential for melting Antarctic ice to disrupt global ocean currents like the Gulf Stream, leading to sudden climate changes in Europe and North America. Another worry is the release of methane gas from the thawing permafrost in the Arctic, which could trigger a feedback loop, making the melting process impossible to reverse before 2045. From a human point of view, this prophecy is truly a wake-up call. Imagine millions of families in coastal cities like Miami or Bangkok forced to abandon their homes as seawater floods in. According to the World Bank, by 2050, more than 143 million people could become climate refugees, compelled to migrate in search of safety from floods and natural disasters. Most troubling of all, the world's poorest populations would suffer the worst consequences, lacking the resources to relocate or adapt to new environments. So, will 2045 truly be the year when the polar ice caps melt away as Baba Vanga predicted? Scientists say this could happen sooner or later, depending on the world's efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Agreements like the Paris Accord have set the goal of keeping global warming below 2 degrees Celsius, but the reality is that we are at risk of surpassing this threshold before 2040. For this reason, Vanga's prophecy can be seen as an urgent call to invest aggressively in renewable energy, protect forests, reduce carbon emissions, and take decisive action before it's too late. Number 3. The Prophecies of Edgar Cayce. The Shifting of the Earth, a prophecy that troubled the world. Edgar Cayce became famous for his haunting predictions about humanity's future. Among them, one particular prophecy has left many people deeply unsettled. Cayce believed that the Earth would undergo a major geological shift in the early 21st century. According to him, violent earthquakes and tsunamis would devastate much of the world, submerging Japan, northern Europe, and parts of California beneath the cold ocean depths. Cayce described this vision as a complete reshaping of the world's map, where the continents would no longer retain the familiar outlines we know today. He believed these changes would mark a turning point in human history, forcing mankind to confront the overwhelming power of nature, something utterly beyond our control. Yet, as the 21st century unfolded, reality did not bring about the scale of disaster Cayce once predicted. Even so, many people still remember the devastating earthquake and tsunami that struck Japan in 2011, a catastrophe that claimed over 15,000 lives. Some see this as a sign of Cayce's prophecy coming true, but scientists maintain that it was simply a natural event, unconnected to any supernatural prediction. Meanwhile, California and Northern Europe remain on the map, though the ever-present threat of earthquakes is still a reality for those who live there. The Rise of Atlantis, an eternal dream beneath the ocean. Among the most famous prophecies ever made by Edgar Cayce, the story of Atlantis has always held a special allure for anyone fascinated by ancient mysteries. Cayce once claimed that the continent of Atlantis, a place believed to have vanished beneath the waves thousands of years ago, would one day re-emerge near the waters of the Bahamas. He even specified that this would happen sometime between 1968 and 1998, predicting that the lost civilization's mysterious ruins would be found beneath the sea, serving as undeniable proof of Atlantis' existence. According to Cayce, Atlantis was never just a legend. It was once a highly advanced civilization, far beyond what we usually imagine about the ancient world. They possessed technology and knowledge that, even today, remains a profound mystery to modern humanity. Cayce believed that the return of Atlantis would change everything we thought we knew about the history of mankind, forcing us to look back at the past with entirely new eyes. Just as he foretold, in 1968, divers discovered a strange stone formation beneath the ocean and named it the Bimini Road. This structure consisted of massive stones lying together in a straight line, resembling an ancient highway lost beneath the blue water. The discovery immediately caught the attention of people all across America, especially those who grew up on stories of Atlantis in books and on television. Many believed that this was the first sign of the legendary continent's return and a living testament to Cayce's prophecies. However, scientists soon stepped in and conducted extensive research to unravel the mystery. They concluded that the Bimini Road was, in fact, a natural phenomenon shaped by geological processes over thousands of years. The stones were not the work of human hands at all, but rather the product of nature itself. Even so, the story of Atlantis and the mysteries hidden beneath the sea have never lost their hold on our imagination. Cayce's predictions, though unproven by science, remain a source of inspiration for countless expeditions, debates, and dreams that have endured to this very day. And the great question still lingers: is the ocean hiding some lost truth about the glorious past that humanity once had? The New Spiritual Age. Edgar Cayce was not only famous for his predictions of disaster, he also offered humanity a ray of hope for the future. He believed that as the 21st century began, people would enter a new spiritual era, a time when no one would live just for themselves, but would instead seek harmony with the natural world. According to Cayce, this period would be a global awakening, where each individual's consciousness would gradually be elevated. Everyone would learn to seek enlightenment for themselves, then spread compassion and kindness to those around them. He envisioned that this change would not happen all at once, but would start with small groups within society. These people would be the seeds of transformation, slowly influencing and inspiring others so that the entire world could move toward a more just society. Cayce described this as an age in which people would learn to live in balance, letting go of the selfishness that once caused division and conflict in the past. These predictions captured the attention of many Americans, especially during times of economic crisis and great upheaval. Today, some believe that modern movements, such as meditation, environmental protection, and sustainable living, are signs that Cayce's spiritual era is beginning to take shape. The rise of sustainable communities across America can also be seen as evidence of this vision, as more and more people seek a life close to nature and a renewed respect for human values. The collapse of the stock market, when prophecy became reality. Among Edgar Cayce's predictions, perhaps none sent more shockwaves or has been more widely remembered than his warning about the collapse of the American stock market at the end of the 1920s. At that time, the US economy was at its peak and people everywhere believed in a bright and prosperous future. Yet in the midst of all that optimism, Cayce delivered a chilling warning. In one of his famous readings, he emphasized that a disturbance in the affairs of men was approaching and would shake the entire nation. He predicted that this event would be far more than a minor setback. It would trigger a severe financial crisis and affect millions of Americans. That warning may have sounded distant at first, but by October 1929, the stock market truly did collapse. In the blink of an eye, millions lost their jobs. Banks went under across the country, and America was plunged into the Great Depression that would last for years. This prediction brought Edgar Cayce's name to the attention of the wider public. For many Americans over 40, the Great Depression is not just a story from the history books, but a memory passed down through generations. Their grandparents and parents spoke of those hard years when the entire nation struggled to overcome hardship together. Cayce's prophecy about 1929 stood apart from other vague predictions because it was so clearly confirmed by the real events that followed. Even so, not everyone believed in Cayce's ability to see the future. Some critics argued that it could have been nothing more than a coincidence, since economic crises have always tended to come in cycles. But for those who believe in Cayce, this success stands as proof that he truly had a special gift, a gift for seeing things that others simply could not foresee. Number 4, the prophecy of the Hopi elders. In the deserts of northern Arizona, the Hopi people have lived for thousands of years, surrounded by a vast, arid landscape where the wind sweeps across rocky hillsides and the sun scorches the cracked earth. The Hopi built their pueblo villages from stone atop high mesas, where they could watch the endless sky and listen to the rhythm of nature, nurturing a belief in balance and harmony with the world around them. Beneath these villages lay mysterious kiva chambers, where Hopi men would gather to pray, commune with the spirits, and pass down their sacred traditions from one generation to the next. The prophetic traditions of the Hopi are more than just stories told around a fire or gentle reminders passed down to their children. They are heartfelt warnings about the delicate relationship between people and nature, a reminder of the fragile boundaries we all must respect if we do not wish to lose the life that springs from this very land, the sign of the blue star. From ancient times, the Hopi have believed that a blue star would one day appear in the sky, and to them, this was not just a strange phenomenon, but a warning for all humanity about the day of purification, the moment when the old world must give way to a completely new era. In the minds of Hopi elders, this star is called Sakwa Sohu, also known as the blue star Kachina, and it is considered the final sign in a series of 9 prophecies that have been passed down from generation to generation. It is said that when this star appears, it will remove its mysterious mask right in the center of the village square, and that moment will not only mark the end of sacred ceremonies, but will also be the signal for the entire world to step into a new phase, one filled with changes unlike anything humanity has ever seen before. According to the elders, this blue star will be a special object in the sky. It could be a brilliant comet, a massive supernova, or even a mysterious body never before known to mankind. Over the years, many have tried to connect this prophecy to remarkable astronomical events they witnessed. In 1997, when the Hale-Bopp comet appeared with its distinctive blue-white glow, some believed it was the blue star Kachina that the Hopi had spoken of for centuries. Yet, as time passed and the world continued to turn, nothing catastrophic occurred as foretold in the ancient prophecy. Others still believe that the blue star could truly appear in the future, perhaps the moment when a giant star explodes into a supernova. For many Americans who lived through the Cold War era, the image of a strange sign in the sky always brings back memories of anxious times when everyone lived with the fear of threats from space, from unexpected asteroids hurtling toward Earth, or from events beyond anyone's control. To this day, the prophecy of the Hopi blue star continues to fascinate because it is not simply a native legend, but a reflection of humanity's shared anxiety about sudden, world-changing events that could happen at any time in the vast sky above. Even though the star has not yet appeared and everything remains in the realm of speculation, whenever we look up at the night sky, there is still an unanswered question: whether someday a mysterious sign might appear and completely alter the fate of our world. Webs across the sky. For generations, the Hopi have passed down a strange prophecy about webs stretched across the sky. The elders tell that a day will come when people look up and see endless tangled lines crisscrossing above, and that will be the sign that the world is changing in ways never seen before. In the eyes of the Hopi, the webs in the sky are not just a simple image. They are a warning about the rapid advance of technology, a turning point that will forever alter the way people live. Many today interpret those webs as flight paths stretching across the heavens, or as the long white trails left by jet planes from one horizon to the other. Some believe that these webs are the networks of power lines and telecommunication cables, the very symbols of the industrial age that have come to cover every corner of the land. Yet for the Hopi, the appearance of these webs is not only a testament to human achievement, but also a reminder that the further we travel down the path of technology, the more easily we may lose our original connection to Mother Earth. The elders have warned that when the webs fill the sky, it is also the moment when the fragile balance between nature and humanity is most at risk. Black seas and deadland. Among the ancient prophecies of the Hopi, perhaps the most haunting is the vision of a day when the sea will turn black and the land will die. A vision that can make anyone shudder when thinking about the Earth's future. For the Hopi, the sea is not just a vast expanse of water, it is a source of life that nourishes all living things, a blue artery that keeps the world balanced and at peace. Yet, they have warned that the time will come when the ocean is gravely polluted, when its once clear waters will be covered with a deadly blackness, and fertile lands will become barren. Many people today look at the state of the world and realize that this prophecy is no longer just an old legend. It seems to be slowly coming true, especially in the wake of major environmental disasters like the Deepwater Horizon oil spill in 2010, when millions of barrels of oil poured into the Gulf of Mexico, turning once living waters into a black wasteland. The Hopi see this as the seventh sign in their series of prophecies, a reminder that humanity has gone astray and that these events are not just accidents, but the inevitable result of reckless exploitation of the natural world. Number 5. The Prophecies of Alois Irlmaier, World War III, the 21st century. Alois Irlmaier was a German prophet whose predictions about the 21st century have made many people ponder the fate of humanity. He claimed that a global war would begin with an event that seemed small and insignificant in the Balkans. At first, people all across Europe desperately longed for peace. They spoke the word shalom as a last hope while tension built everywhere. But these calls for peace could not prevent the coming conflict. Before anyone could truly understand what was happening, an assassination in the Balkans set everything in motion. According to Irlmaier, 2 hired killers were sent to murder a key figure. One was a short, dark-skinned man. The other was tall, with light-colored hair. The death of this high-ranking individual not only shocked the region, but became the spark that caused war to spread across the continent in a single night. Almost immediately, powerful military forces from the east began crossing the borders. Irlmaier described 3 armies moving into Europe, sweeping through Belgrade, Italy, and Germany, all heading toward the Rhine River. Cities that were once bustling, like Frankfurt, were now devastated by bombs. The Rhine Valley, once peaceful and full of fertile fields, became the target of relentless airstrikes. In his visions, Irlmaier saw a weapon he called the Yellow Sandstorm. This dust was dropped from airplanes and created a dead zone stretching from the Black Sea to the North Sea. For a whole year afterward, nothing, no plant or animal, could survive in that wasteland. Many researchers later believed that he was referring to chemical weapons or poisonous gases like those that caused horror during the First World War. Irlmaier could not say how long this war would last. He only knew that the number 3 would be tied to its duration. For him, the conflict might continue for 3 days, 3 weeks, or 3 years, but the consequences would go far beyond anything anyone could imagine. When Western armies, including American forces, tried to push back the invaders at the Rhine, many great cities had already been destroyed, and millions of people had been forced to leave everything behind to flee. He envisioned scenes where farmers were still sitting in taverns playing cards, unaware that foreign soldiers were already standing just outside their windows. In the end, what Irlmaier saw was only a fragment of the deep anxiety the world has known, and the question of what the future holds remains open for all of us. 3 days of darkness. Alois Irlmaier once spoke of a prediction that sends a chill down the spine every time it is mentioned. He called it the 3 days of darkness. According to Irlmaier, a time will come when all of Europe is plunged into complete darkness for 3 straight days. He described the sky turning as black as the deepest night, with not a single ray of light to be found. During that time, thunder would roar fiercely, and poisonous dust would cover everything, making the air thick and suffocating. Irlmaier warned that no one should open their windows or let anyone into the house, not even the closest of friends or family, because even a wisp of the deadly smoke could claim the lives of everyone inside. He advised people to prepare water, stock up on food, and stay in high, sealed places where the wind could not get in. Irlmaier believed that many would lose their lives, far more, in fact, than in both previous world wars. Irlmaier did not specify the exact cause of this disaster, but he suggested it might be triggered by a mysterious celestial event or as a consequence of nuclear war. He envisioned the sky blanketed with dust and ash so dense that no light could break through. Many who have heard this prophecy have connected it to moments in history, recalling the eruption of Mount Tambora in 1815 when volcanic ash turned the sky black and led to a year without summer across Europe and North America. Others think of the possibility of radioactive fallout after a nuclear conflict, darkening the skies for days on end. Irlmaier's vision did not end with darkness. He also saw a great flood swallowing coastal regions. According to him, Russia would bomb the North Sea, causing a tsunami to sweep into England, France, the Netherlands, Germany, and Denmark. He saw half of England underwater and entire coastal cities vanishing from the map. For older Americans, these images of 3 days of darkness and catastrophic floods call up old fears of nuclear war from the Reagan era, or memories of apocalyptic movies like The Day After that once haunted an entire generation. Irlmaier emphasized that only those who are thoroughly prepared will have a chance of surviving this disaster. His prophecy is not just a warning of danger, but a reminder of how important it is to be ready for risks that no one can foresee. If you found today's prophecies thought-provoking, please share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the latest videos about historical mysteries and controversial predictions. Thank you for watching.